Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the Esports Racing League All-Star Race from Nashville, our exhibition race for the fall season of the Esports Racing League presented by SimSuits. Live tonight from the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Justin Prince, our producer Ryan Bauer, powered by Top Flight Computers. Welcome to all of you this evening, whether or not you're on YouTube, Twitch, Trovo, Twitter, Facebook, as we bring you a special broadcast. It wasn't on the calendar to start off with, but JP, we are at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway for the very first time in iRacing. This track literally dropped when they finished off the build maybe, 3-4 hours ago. So this is everybody's first crack ever at this track in a big-time race, and it's the first major broadcast from the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway.
There's been a lot of buzz in lead up to this racetrack making its debut on the iRacing service, and for good reason. It's a very popular racetrack. It's one that's been noteworthy, especially in recent years, with the interest in NASCAR's return to the track in the future. It's also a track that is fun to drive on. Many of our competitors have described a bit of difficulty getting off the corners, yes, but it's also one where you can essentially find different lines all around this facility. It's going to be a fun one tonight to see who can come out on top of this all-star race, because with how this track drives, it could literally be anyone. It could literally be potentially 3 wide in some cases.
It could be very, very entertaining, because this is a bit of a different racetrack compared to a lot of the sort of hometown short tracks that we've seen on iRacing. This is a nearly 6/10 of a mile circuit, which is a bit of an oddity. Not too many other tracks and ovals of this particular length in iRacing. It's a bit bigger than what you find, so going to be something that these drivers are going to have to adjust to very quickly, as you see the 51 of Donovan Strauss on your screens. But very flat on the straightaways, but enough banking in the corners. 18 degrees in the corners, so I think in that sense maybe profiles a little bit like Las Vegas, just a little bit tighter.
A little bit indeed, but you have to keep in mind there's a lot of speed also carried around this track because the banking. You see it with Braxton DeWeese and how much wheel and how much throttle you have to input around this racetrack. You're blistering quick around here. Just 17 seconds per lap on average for drivers in practice and in qualifying so far. And this is with the fairly hot track at 91 degrees Fahrenheit. The times are going to be quick. The track is going to be quick. And the potential adjustments to how it could handle here are going to have to be quick if you want to be able to adapt to the potential changing conditions as the night goes on here at this facility. And speaking with some of the drivers as well, James, as well as speaking with some of the drivers in real life here, they've been looking forward to this since they heard this announcement, and know this may become one of the most, if not the most popular tracks on iRacing if things go the way they plan.
It's a unique hometown short track, but it's also got a lot of history. We found out that Nashville was coming to the service. I think the first tweet from Kevin Iannarelli and Greg Hill and company came up last year about this time. At that point, we knew that Nashville was going to eventually make it onto the service. Dale Earnhardt Jr. Previewed it on his Twitter feeds multiple times over the course of the past year as the staff at iRacing built this facility in sim. Talked about it a little bit when he debuted his Bringing Back Wilkesboro video on his Twitch, and talked about a run of historic short tracks that he'd like to see on the service. This was one of them. Hickory is another one he talked about. That too is going to be on the service at some stage, and he said he'd like to see my home track, Bowman Gray Stadium, on the surface as well at some point. We'll see whether or not that comes to fruition in the future, but sort of a revival of the big-time history here, the revival of the short tracks that made this sport great. Nashville's got a history unlike few other tracks in the country. The facility originally opened in 1904. It is the oldest continually operating racetrack in the United States. So don't doubt this place's history, and don't doubt how big it was for the Grand National Series back in the 50s and 60s. And then the Grand National Series, what we knew best as the Busch Series, ran here up until 2000. So plenty of stories this place can tell, plenty of fun that can be had over the course of the evening. As Jimmy Mullis starts off this evening with the top time, 17.672 seconds. Anthony Burrows will roll off from second, 17.706. Tucker Minter and Landon Huffman going to roll off and have a very strong machine, and I think especially in that White House S car that his father Robert made so famous in the Goodies Dash series. I'm going to start from fourth this evening. JP, should be a lot of fun to see what he does.
Yes, indeed. Blaze McKinney in fifth position. Anthony Alfredo was second quickest in practice. He was pumped up on his string just prior to tonight's coverage in sixth spot. Braxton DeWeese looking quick and qualifying seventh. McCandless, Rabideau, and Kozik amongst the top 10. Keep an eye on Josh Kozik, now part of Total Advantage Motorsport after a bit of a shuffle, James. He's looking to be strong here at this racetrack tonight, a short track ace.
Nick Olson will roll off from the 11th position. 12th will be that 12 machine of Evan Rice out of Georgia. Zach Novak starts from the 13th spot. 14th will be Colton Zimmer. Ben Adams 15th. 16th to the 51 of Donovan Strauss. He rode to pro fame. Justin Patello, Nick Delicato, Lucas Cram, and Chris Rabel round out the top 20.
Rest of the drivers in the field, John Najet along with Colby Wells, Robert Henrata. Should note that Najet did not make it to the grid for tonight's start. As we get ready to go racing here, let's take a look at the Google Earth.
We are here in the heart of Tennessee, Music City at the Fairgrounds, not terribly far to the northwest of downtown Nashville. We're only a few miles away and not terribly far away from the old flea market and the site of Nashville SC's soon-to-be stadium, going to be built right behind the main stand here at the Fairgrounds Speedway. So it should be a lot of fun to see how that pans out on this 0.6 of a mile kilometer circuit track. 18 degrees of banking in the turns, 3 degrees of banking on the straights. We go for 100 laps this evening, 60 miles, just under 100 kilometers, JP, and a lot of fun to see how these drivers get around Nashville for the very first time as Jimmy Mullis will reach the green.
Going to be an absolutely entertaining race here, James. All the cars all set to go. Good to see these cars race here in Nashville.
They take off and we are underway at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. Good start for Jimmy Mullis as you ride on board that number 46 machine. You got the 29 in line there. We switch to Landon Huffman, who we saw that scheme have a lot of success at Darlington on Saturday with Brandon Jones getting the job done. But that's the same scheme his father ran. We mentioned it just a bit ago. But the White House scheme, for those who need a bit of an education, the first Toyota to win a national championship in any NASCAR series was Robert Huffman with his Toyota Celica back in 2000. So that White House scheme, pretty famous. You're going to see that a lot tonight, I think.
I think so too, especially since he's a strong short track racer, but as well keep in mind that paint scheme won at Darlington in real life in its throwback with Brandon Jones in that phenomenal race on Saturday. Going to be interesting to see how the speed fares out, but Mullis is just completely checked out early. 0.3 of a second a lap quicker in the short run early on to run away from the Nexus Esports drivers of Burroughs and Minter.
Burroughs and Minter and Huffman, Blaze McKinney also in that mix, and the man himself, Anthony Alfredo, all in a conga line down the backstretch. But Jimmy Mullis has figured out this place quickly. And maybe not a huge surprise. Mullis, we know, does love his short tracks. And, oh, there goes Huffman, though, sideways off the quarter of 4. But Mullis, we know, really does love the short tracks. Got the victory in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series at New Hampshire. And I have a hunch you chop the spoiler and give the power back to the rear wheels, and it almost becomes Jimmy Mullis' playground.
A little bit, absolutely. It just seems like he's consistent on the marks. 0.2 of a second now on average quicker than the rest of the field. Still very early on in this race. That's the thing, though, James, because for many of these drivers, it's some of their first time races here at this track. Bit of trouble, though, in 3 and 4. Rabideau spinning nearly in front of the whole field in the 93 from the top 10.
Tough one for Nathan Rabideau, who's going to lose all that track position as we look at Blake McCandless in the sim racing shirts, number 66, Chevy Camaro. We know Blake, a big fan of the 87 cars, and a big fan of the short tracks, and does love running at North Wilkesboro a lot. A lot of comparisons I've heard the field make it, and a lot of people in the community make between North Wilkesboro and Nashville, not necessarily in the way they race, but in the sense that they are sort of that old school, historic short track group, shall we say, that Nashville certainly deserves a place in, and I think a few other spots as well. And figure that if you're good there, probably won't be too hard for you to figure out this place as we go on board with Huffman.
Indeed, and keep in mind there's been a rise in historic old school short tracks making its way to the iRacing service, expecting potentially one more in the near future. Who knows what will be coming in the near future, but at this point, if you're Landon Huffman, you're hoping that another hit to the inside wall is not what's coming. Josh Kozik, short track ace, getting a little bit loose too.
Few drivers there that know Hickory Motor Speedway very well, and I think we'll be quite excited to see that arrive on iRacing in the future. Kozik and Huffman have both won races at Hickory in the past. Landon won just Saturday night at Hickory, actually, so they might know each other a little bit from real life and get a chance to race each other in the sim as well as we go on board with Anthony Burroughs. Just looking back at Tucker Minter, this is second and third in the race that you see, and about a half second back behind Jimmy Mullis, your race leader.
Indeed, and you see here on top of this, Alfredo still quietly holding on to the top 5 here, and the fall-off is already pretty dramatic. In the span of 12 laps, it's already up to 1 second. These drivers are really, it seems, having to saw the wheel and try and make sure they don't cook these tires. And we also see the various different lines. A couple are trying all the way up next to the wall, for example, in 3 and 4. A couple discuss trying to diamond it off the corner to ramp it on down and carry momentum. We're seeing all kinds of different lines and preferences just work out for these drivers tonight, but some of them are starting to migrate now towards the bottom now that the tires are wearing out at one end of the speedway, more of the middle line in 1 and 2.
One of the aspects of this place that I think is very true to real life at the end of the day, you'll see drivers start searching around in the corners. You don't necessarily have to be at the bottom here to make this place work for you. There's enough banking that you can slide around and pick a lane. If you feel like your car might be a little bit better in the middle of the racetrack or a little bit higher up, you can run there if you want. You might burn your tires off a little bit more if you're down at the bottom, but there's certainly room to explore, and it makes it a very racy racetrack and one that drivers in real life, especially those who run the late models and the super late models, love a lot.
Absolutely, and I think that's why I think this track has a lot of potential to be very popular here with the different migrations here. We've seen it with Nexus drivers, but now Anthony Alfredo's in a little bit of trouble here, James, because a lap ago he wobbled up the racetrack nearly up to the outside wall in 3 and 4, and now DeWeese, Strauss, and McCandless and company are all right on his tail after that little bobble. Just shows how important it is. If you miss your marks, you're likely losing a ton of time in getting everybody lined up behind you to try and make a move.
He stacked up that group behind him pretty well. You see that train of cars behind him: Donovan Strauss, Blake McCandless, and Braxton DeWeese, the 3 cars behind the 21 of Anthony Alfredo in the sim seats machine, and maybe leading a little bit on his late model experience. I'd say this track, as of now and in the present day, most famous for super late model racing. The All-American 400 held usually the first weekend of November every year, the flagship race of this track now, and there's a pretty impressive list of drivers who have won that event that dates back to 1982. If you go back and look at the history books, Rusty Wallace has won it, Darrell Waltrip has won it, Jeff Purvis, short track race, who spent some time in the Then Winston Cup Series, was a winner. Some of the more recent names: John Hunter Nemechek, Chase Elliott, Daniel Hemrick, and Bubba Pollard himself, who we expect to be at the All-American 400 on November 1st this year, which just got a whole lot more entertaining over the course of the day. Both the Southern Super Series and the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour announcing that they are going to make the All-American 400 their championship race. So we're going to see 2 different champions crowned. And then, oh, by the way, you've got the ARCA CRA Super Series powered by Jegs, who is already going to run the All-American 400. ARCA CRA, of course, the lead sanctioning body for that event. And we're going to have 3 series running super late models on November 1st. So if you have the opportunity to get out to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway that Sunday, bring your mask. Make sure you stay safe, of course, but it's going to be some of the best super late model racing you're going to see this year outside of the Snowball Derby at Five Flags, no question.
And what a venue, mind you, to host a championship, to say the very least. It's, as we've seen, very fun and entertaining, but already 2 things. Lap traffic has already played a factor, and 2 of note, it was talked about in pre-race from race control that single car spins would not trigger a caution flag for cars snapping loose. There were several drivers in practice who were bowing off the corner in the session right on the corner exit. It hasn't been that case so far, but drivers like Alfredo you see are kind of almost leaning on the right rear tire. Keep in mind, there was that new build today which adjusted some of the handling a little bit with the setups, particularly with the tire damping, which was increased to reduce the rolling and bouncing that sometimes had occurred with stiff front suspensions, as well as the tire rubber properties. So those little tiny adjustments, some of these drivers are having to adapt to. Mullis has adapted to it very, very well. Let's put it that way so far, though.
Mullis has adapted to it very well. As we take a moment to remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by our friends at SimSeats. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality driving simulators, including motion systems, custom fabricated parts, and complete turnkey iRacing packages, all made in the United States of America. Their customer base includes all kinds of drivers, from amateurs to professionals, and their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Don't limit your track time to the weekend. Visit www.sim-seats.com for more information. As you see Anthony Alfredo piloting that SimSeats Chevy Camaro and sliding around just a little bit, JP.
And a bit of tempers flaring because there was some trouble down the back straightaway last time by, because Donovan Strauss, your biggest mover, up 9 spots, had snapped off the corner in turn 2, came down the track, and Landon Huffman nowhere to go, hit him in the back end. Was not happy with that. That in turn has damaged Landon Huffman's front nose significantly. That may cause a bit of issues with this quick track. This is what happened. Donovan Strauss getting loose right on the middle groove, like we're talking about on longer runs. And that in turn had seen him bobble right in front of Huffman, where he had no time to react. All well, McCandless, for whatever reason, decided to pit at that same time.
Makes you wonder potentially if, in fact, McCandless just see what's happened to the tires here, and maybe, just maybe, he wants to get ahead of the curve and make sure that he doesn't end up as loose as Strauss did, who was way up on the fence, and yeah, nowhere for Landon Huffman to go in his number 37 car. So Strauss pulling off the racetrack, Huffman trying to carry on, all the while Jimmy Mullis still leading everyone here at Nashville.
Now keep in mind, our tire set limits for tonight, and there were in total 3 in the pits, 4 total for this race. If it became caution precaution, we were, I think, both expecting that to come into play, but so far, it's been surprisingly clean outside of a couple drivers and that contact there. The interesting thing, I think, though, is keeping an eye on McCandless, because he's now 34 seconds back of the leader in some tracks like North Wilkesboro, where you could make an odd field, let's say, for an A-Open in a 140-lap race. The tire advantage by deciding to come and pit James in that race, though, in turn, in some of those events during official racing at that track, allowed you to gain 2 laps and in turn potentially lap the people trying to stretch it on a no stop.
Potentially going to be a very interesting thing that we'll have to keep our eye on over the course of the evening as Mullis continues to lead. But Anthony Burrows has closed this gap down. It was a little bit bigger than a second not too long ago, and all of a sudden Burrows is starting to close in on that 46. So makes me wonder if Anthony might have done a little bit better job of saving the tires than Jimmy did.
And that was the big question we were talking about, right? He's been able to run a little bit higher groove than Mullis, just outside of some of the rubber, but now is within a bit of that draft. Just seems to be able to now be a little bit more consistent. The times are near dead even, should know. But over the past 10 laps, a 1/10 of a second quicker, and Mullis just drifted right in front of Burrows. Might be the perfect example. Watch from the back end, because we talked about some cars getting loose. I wonder if Mullis is actually getting to that point where he's getting so loose. That's what's costing him the time.
In a simple case of whether or not you want to, I'll go back to a phrase that Ken Schrader used in the final broadcast here at Nashville, whether or not you want to pay me now or pay me later, referring to just how much you use up these tires at the beginning of a green flag run, or whether or not you try and save them a little bit. Looks, at least from what we can tell at this moment, that Jimmy Mullis has used up the tires on the 46 machine, as Burrows is now all over the rear bumper of that Toyota Camry for the race lead. Burrows might be waiting, playing the long game, and might end up the beneficiary here if we stay under green.
And he's ran away from his teammates, mind you, here. Takes away the preferred line, though, and I think Mullis might try and give him the squeeze. Doesn't want to lose this lead.
Really doesn't want to lose the lead. So now we're going to see 2 groove racing at Nashville for the first time in iRacing. Mullis with that high line, Burrows down to the bottom, and you see just how well Mullis is able to carry the momentum up top, and he will keep Burrows at bay for the moment. Emphasis though on that for the moment, because Burrows has the faster car, no question about it.
Yeah, it's just a matter of not using up the tires, trying to find a way on by, and I think it might come down to a good ramp off the corner or trying to take the outside away. Burrows went with the ramp this time. Don't think it's enough, though. Once again, just needs to force Mullis to have the lip like right there.
Had to really force Mullis off the gas, and the 46 is going to slide back into P2 as Anthony Burrows takes over the lead for the first time. Move that number 29 car to P1.
Yeah, just was able to force Mullis to really just be a little bit more aggressive on the gas, slid him up a little, quarter of a lane higher even. Now his tires are completely gone, Mullis's. I think he just absolutely, in that run trying to build up that gap, completely killed the right rear tire. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold on for 59 laps if he tries, if we keep this race green at this point.
If if. And then the question might become whether or not Anthony Burroughs decides to burn his tires off. We can tell that Mullis is already slipping back. It was a 19.8 to a 20.1 that last time by. So Burroughs had 3/10 on Mullis already. I almost wonder, JP, if you're Jimmy, do you just go ahead, cut your losses, and come down pit road? Or are you trying to force yourself to go to lap 50 to split this race on one set of tires?
That's actually a difficult question, because if you try and go for one stop in this type of race, there's no guarantee you're going to unlap yourself. But Josh Kozak around down the front stretch. No caution yet, though, as he's been able to get back rolling on the racetrack at this point. But back to your point, there's a lot of risk, to say the very least, with it being very loose on this racetrack for some of these cars, but also the risk of a caution flag. If you pit and you're pinned a lap down, that's going to put you behind the 8 ball. Keep in mind, McCandless hasn't even unlapped himself yet.
Big amount of time. Blake McCandless is faster by almost 7/10 of a second, but he is still a lap down in the number 166 machine. So plenty of work that he's going to need to do in order to get to the front. But as it stands, Burroughs still your race leader. Good battle, though, for fifth, though. Tucker Minter and Anthony Alfredo side by side for position.
Yeah, Minter burned up his equipment, I think, compared to what a Burroughs was able to do. Nearly snapped it around again. I think to Minter maybe a little bit harder on the gas. Maybe that's causing him to just lose this back end, and you need to treat the throttle like an egg, especially when it's a loose setup like this. And now, I think Minter's in trouble here. He's in the same box as Mullis now on the tire wear.
And you hang on 3 more laps, or you're going to end up looping it around. That's the question for Tucker Minter, who is very clearly struggling for rear grip. Nathan Rabideau is the next car in line, and we'll see if the number 93 machine can catch that 10 car over the next few laps. You're just trying to make it to lap 50 if you can, but no incidents so far of note. And that's something race control is just reiterated here. Single car spins, but nobody going sideways here at Nashville just yet.
We have always seen people going sideways, James. It's just a matter of we haven't seen multiple cars at the same time go sideways, but Minter's really got a nervous-looking race car. I don't know how he's going to be able to hold on to this with Novak now on his tail. The next cars behind are now 2 seconds behind as we're approaching halfway this upcoming time by 51 to go.
Anthony Burroughs will complete us and bring us past halfway. And now you see Blake McCandless get past Jimmy Mullis. And he's going to continue to work here to try and unlap himself. The problem, though, is that once everybody else comes down pit road, McCandless, you would figure, would cycle to the lead, but he's going to be slower, no question. Already up to a 19.7. You would expect the fast drivers here to run 19.5. So we'll see if anybody decides to wait it out, see if anybody decides to come down pit road for tires. And nothing yet here. They avoid coming down pit road. So we'll go ahead and take a moment to bring you all our iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport. Virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Anthony Burroughs is your race leader over Jimmy Mullis. Blaze McKinney runs in the 3rd position. 4th at the moment belongs to the number 8, Braxton DeWeese. Anthony Alfredo, the maestro of the ERL, runs 5th. 6th to the 93 of Nathan Rabideau. Zach Novak, the defending eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion, is 7th. 8th to the 10 of Tucker Minter. Landon Huffman and Lucas Cram round out the top 10.
11th spot is Evan Rice with Blake McCandless. He's already up to 12th position, recently unlapped himself. Kobe Wells in 13th spot. Jabo is the last driver on the lead lap, 14th. Nick Delgado is 1 lap down to 15th, the lucky dog spot. But Nick Olson, Josh Kozak, Robert Henrada, Colton Zimmer also still on track. The 2 DNFs of the night, though, Donovan Strauss and Ben Adams. We had 2 DNSs as well, James. John Majette, Chris Rabel did not start tonight.
And that concludes your iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. We're going to take a quick moment to step aside and bring you a word from our partners, but we'll be right back with more coverage of the ERL All-Star Race for the fall from the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway here on Podium Esports.
Presenting the California Clash featuring iRacing. Join us as we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the iconic film Days of Thunder. Our iRacing throwback event will showcase the 1987 NASCAR Chevy Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird stock cars at the virtual Auto Club Speedway. Many will enter, but only 23 drivers will make the field and get the chance to take on the 20 invited VIP locked-in drivers. Join me, Alex Hayden of the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR, alongside Bob Jenkins and Justin Prince, as we present to you the California Clash, hosted by Eric Estep from Out of the Groove. After 30 years, you still can't outrun the Thunder.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the ERL All-Star Race for the fall from the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. And first yellow flag of the evening, Landon Huffman in trouble, and Tucker Minter to the rear tires finally gave out on the number 10 car, and he went around over in turn 2, JP.
Yeah, snapped it right in front of Landon Huffman again. Nowhere to go. He was in the middle of a fight. You see Lucas Cram as well as a couple other cars, but right as Tucker Minter came off the corner the next time by, just nowhere for Huffman to go. Just completely snapped it and demolished the front nose off of Huffman's car. You'll see it right on this corner exit, and we talked about it. That right rear on Minter's car was even worse, it seemed, than Mullis's.
It was really, really torn up and out of shape. They all come down pit road for service, and Minter's going to try and get his car fixed up. And interestingly enough, one car staying out, was staying out for the moment, Colby Wells, but looks like Wells is going to come down pit road. And I believe, unless he missed his pit stall, maybe Evan Rice is the first one that we have scored out of pit road, but it looks like he might have missed the pit stall. So I think Burrows did maintain his spot. But Blaze McKinney, how about the 77 going up to Pete?
Yes, indeed, and you can see right here how these cars line up here. This is bad news for McCandless. He actually gained a few spots, yes, but I think he was hoping he may have gone green. But Evan Rice did miss his stall in that situation. Burrows as well is going to be in a great spot. Now the curious thing, though, is how does Blaze McKinney run? How does Mullis now recover now that he's now known what this car drives like on older tires? Drivers are reporting differences of up to 15 rather, 20, 30% differences between the right front wear and the right rear wear. To put it in perspective, Mullis was at a 58 trying to hold on right rear tire wear.
He was trying to hold on. We'll see whether or not anybody can hold on to the second run. But before we get to green flag racing, we'd be remiss not to talk about the promo that you saw over the course of the side-by-side break for the California Clash. And Justin Prince, I know you've got to be really excited about that one. And for all the time that it seems like we don't get you your moment in the sun, you're getting a pretty big one here because you're sharing the booth with some pretty famous folks, end of the day.
I still can't believe it when thinking about it, honestly, that get the chance to work with Bob Jenkins and Alex Hayden. It almost doesn't feel real, so to speak, but I can't wait to see what happens. A lot of big names have already been announced to be a part of it. Real-world drivers, big-time streamers. It's going to be an entertaining race, and the question's going to be who can take home the checkered flag as well, who can qualify their way in, because the qualifying races are expected to be very stacked, James.
next Thursday night. You can go to California Clash on Twitter and Facebook for more info. I will actually be behind the wheel of the Chevy Monte Carlo, and it's the 87 Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird that are taking to Auto Club. Heat races are next Thursday night, so keep your eyes peeled on that. As we go back, green flag racing, Anthony Burrows to the front, McKinney to second, Mullis to third, Braxton DeWeese up to fourth. You have to go back to Zach Novak and Lucas Cram to find the first side-by-side battle for sixth.
And Novak's been quietly gaining spots this entire race. He's one of the biggest movers. Cram, who we've seen wedged against the wall, mind you, in that caution, was able to get away with minimal damage, and it's still a plus 12 as well. Now, I'm curious how they try and charge up on the fresher tires, and McCann was looking a little more confident now that he's now back on the same tire cycle as everyone else with 34 to go.
I don't think it was ever a matter of McCandless not necessarily being confident, just a matter of being on the weird strategy and honestly probably needing a break like that in order to gain the track position to get back up in the fight and get back up front here. The leaders jumped out in front again, but a good battle between Jimmy Mullis and Blaze McKinney sees the 46 jump back up into P2.
Just past him like he was standing still on the exit of turn 4, and that's one of the main strengths Mullis has. He just seems to send it so deep into the corner in that Richmond Raceway Esports machine that it in turn gains him a lot of time there. Yes, it killed the right rear tire, but the short run, if it is a similar run to what we've seen, might go into his wheelhouse. The problem is Burrows is now driving better now that he's got clean air compared to Mullis, who's in dirty air.
It was a 16 to a 13 last time by and a 21 to a 27 this time by. So Burrows may be figuring this track out, and he's about maybe a groove higher than Jimmy Mullis is at the moment. He's gone way up towards the middle of the racetrack and is quite okay with sitting there saving tires. Maybe you wonder if he might be trying to bait Mullis into using up his tires to catch that 29 machine. And then towards the end of the race, maybe see if Mullis has burnt off his tires to where he won't be able to pass the 29. Interesting play from Anthony Burrows if that's what he's trying to do.
Or the counterpoint, Mullis might say, you know what, I've got track position. I'm going to take the time to save my tires and not lose the right rear like I did the last run. The counterpoint, though, as well, for the other driver for Richmond Raceway Esports is Novak wants to make a pass, and it's on Anthony Alfredo.
Anthony Alfredo there, Sim Seats versus Zach Novak. Of course, this is a big weekend for the real-life Richmond Raceway as Novak and Alfredo make contact with one another on the front stretch. And the second yellow flag of the evening comes out. Big bounce there out of turn 4, and we'll take a look at the replay to see exactly what happened. I was about to say you've got two drivers with Richmond connections, but I would say that's all Anthony Alfredo just getting more loose than he intended out of turn 4.
It's probably apologies over the stream right now on his end from the cockpit. You'll see right as he got in the corner exit, this was something he struggled with during the long run last time. Just snapped down the track and right into Novak. Novak just was the unfortunate bystander and all that, but this just opened up a can of worms for the strategy play. Is the fall off, as we've seen, is significant. Now it's the question, how does the tire cycles play out here as you see McCandless just avoid the back end of Alfredo and all this. In live action too, guess who decided to roll the dice? McCandless just rolled the dice.
Figured somebody was going to try the pit strategy and see if they can make it work. And given that he was not afraid to go on an alternate strategy when we had that long green flag run to start this race, no surprise to me at all that Blake McCandless is the one who will stay out and will assume the race lead for this restart, which will come with just under 25 laps to go, as Burrows is going to win the race off of pit road amongst the leaders. Then Mullis, then I believe Landon Huffman also stayed out to try and get his car out there. Blaze McKinney was third off pit road, then Braxton DeWeese, then Anthony Alfredo, then Rabideau, then Evan Rice, Colby Wells, and J-Bo. First 10 cars off of pit road. A few events to tell you about in the world of iRacing this week coming up. Busy week towards the weekend. PCA returns for round 2 of Series 5 as we head to JP's backyard. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Mosport is where we head this Friday night, September 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel. Then on Sunday night, the finale for the GameWorks Racing League will crown a champion at Phoenix Raceway at 8 p.m. Eastern on September 13th. Next Sunday night on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. You can return to twitch.tv/Podium Esports Monday night for the Sim Racing Shirts 200 from Richmond Raceway. That's Monday, September 14th. And then we are back at it from Richmond with the Esports Racing League next Wednesday night, 1 week from tonight, 7:30 p.m. as usual, September 16th, right here on the ERL Racing Twitch channel or Facebook channel or wherever you may be watching tonight's broadcast. So Blake McCandless, the Sim Racing Shirts 66 or 166, depending on how you want to slice it, will be the race leader. He's got about 14 lap older tires than everybody else at the front of the field, so a bit of a disadvantage, but this is that weird sort of ballpark where he might just be in good enough shape that he doesn't end up paying for it all that much, and he may actually be able to hang on here. It'll be very, very close.
It's a decent amount of fall off we've seen during the run, nearly a full second like we've seen at the beginning of the race, but I think the main gamble McCandless is having is he's hoping no one else can get a run to try and make a pass as well as gain track position even more so. He was slowly gaining time before this and may as well, because he had, remember, used one of his tire sets during the long green flag run, so he doesn't have exactly the luxury of coming down each caution like his other competitors up at the front had.
Going to be very, very tight, close quarters racing in the final quarter of tonight's race. Closing it on 20 laps to go as McCandless leads us back to green over 1 and 2, and we'll start to see the tire difference. And immediately, look at that big move from Anthony Burrows. He is going to blitz the 66 machine, but not before they wrecked coming out of turn 2. It got really tight and really narrow on the exit, starting off on the back stretch, and we go under yellow once again. This time it's Braxton DeWeese that goes around.
Yeah, tried to dime in the corner, I think, right off the jump. Bravo was there and just a tiny bit of contact on the right front. You'll see it right here from overhead. He's trying to use that strong line to get clear and gain momentum down the backstretch to keep up with Mullis and company. But right here, Rabideau gets right underneath to carry speed down the bottom, trying to get clear of Alfredo himself, and just a little touch sends around DeWeese, and just about everyone else just able to avoid it except for that poor car to the inside.
So, yellow flag here. This, I think, was just about Blake McCandless's worst nightmare. I almost wonder, do you come in if you're the 66 car at all? Do you just can the strategy and get tires? You lose the track position for sure, but I almost wonder if the fresh rubber may be more worth it than anything, or you just accept the fact that you might need a lot of luck to get the victory, and who knows. But just off of that 2-corner stretch that we saw on the green, we saw the way Anthony Burrows was able to dime in the corner off of 2. He had about a car length and a half, I think, on McCandless coming when they got to turn 3. It's going to be really tough on old tires, I think, to stay up at the very front of this field.
You see it even with the drivers on the replays at the back of the field. They were just able to carry a lot of off-throttle time and on-throttle time off the corner and fresher grip. This indeed is the worst nightmare, I think you have to say, for McCandless, because it's not likely the errors are pitting. So if you needed at least maybe a 10-lap run to then justify coming down and trying something different with 14 cars in the lead lap. Now it's not so easy, and now it's the question of if you have to take tires, can you even gain the spots back by the time you take the checker?
How wild does it get? Are you going to need some help? Do you need to get aggressive to maybe make the move to get the victory at the end of the night? That's the biggest question as we continue to ride under the pace car. And while we ride under the pace car, I think a good moment as ever to talk about some of the new additions that have made it onto iRacing with the build. This obviously the biggest addition for the oval side of things, this very historic short track in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, but it's not the only addition. And I would almost argue that the dirt folks and the road folks are going to have a little bit more fun on this build. You could also argue the superstars of this particular build, the Dallara LMP2 and the C8 Corvette. Yes, you heard that correctly. The brand new Chevrolet Corvette has arrived in iRacing.
And there's a lot of hype and excitement, to say the very least, about those new cars and the new tracks. Was talking with a couple people today about that, where they were looking forward especially to having a chance to get a hold of some of the new content to see how they can adapt to it, how they would drive, etc. Some air drivers from respective teams were over the moon with how both those new cars handle the road course side. We're about to see how these cars handle for 16 more laps though, James. Here we go.
Will be wild, no question, as Burrows is back to the gas. Lap 85 of 100. There goes McCandless to the inside. He has to fight, but look at that run from the 29 up high. McCandless will slide in front of Jimmy Mullis to keep the 46 at bay, and then slide up the racetrack. I think Mullis got into McCandless, then they just about go 3 wide out of the corner. McCandless loses all that momentum. He's now side by side with Nathan Rabideau for the 4th spot as Mullis fights Blaze McKinney for P2.
No contact on the back end of McCandless, but still, that just shows, again, the grip is already massive between them. But McKinney losing a ton of time to Mullis, and now this is the chance for Mullis to pounce because this is right in his wheelhouse we've seen. He's lightning quick on the short run. Now, can he get the laps he needs to, though, and have it stay green throughout the rest of this run?
One car sideways further back in the field. We say green flag racing. Rabideau and McCandless still side by side as they continue to chase down the laps and work their way towards the finish. Here comes Anthony Alfredo under the 66. And while Alfredo makes the move on McCandless, Mullis is beginning to inch ever so closer to Anthony Burrows in that 29. We'll take a look at the lap times when they come across the stripe. And Burrows just ran an 18.0 to an 18.0 for Mullis, so they are dead even on times, and doubtless that those two are giving 100% of this stretch as we work within 10 laps to go.
Deedon a little bit higher up this time for Burrows, looking like he's trying to force Mullis to burn up a little bit more of his stuff. Mullis, meanwhile, is just trying to take advantage and just ride his way along that yellow line. Carry as much speed as he can into 3 and 4 and try and pounce that way. That's his better half of the track as the caution's out.
Yellow flag is out. Nick Olson's around in turn 2, and that will shut up a short dash to the finish. I don't think it's going to be a green-white checker, but it's going to be close. Contact with Landon Huffman in the 37 car. He bounces off the 24. Olson goes sideways, and we go under yellow once more.
Absolutely. Here's a look here, and a couple drivers were being pretty squirrely off the corner, and right there, a little bit of a door check. Huffman had the space in the bottom. Olson ends up getting turned around, and we're back under yellow, and now this is going to be very interesting how this plays out and what the strategies are because of this. Most of the drivers, I think, may stay out and are staying out here, James, but one driver we know had to come in was Blake McCandless, and did.
Had no choice, I think, just with the way the tires were going, and this now becomes a very fun game of just how much McCandless can charge. And I think if you're Blake, you're hoping that we get a few green-white checkers, because I think he may have something to at least climb back through the field a little bit if, in fact, we get a few. And I won't totally rule it out, just with the way the racing's gone in the second half of this event. Burrows and Mullis, though, are clash of the field, hands down, no question. And Anthony Alfredo is also up there too. Let's not rule out the 21 machine. I wonder if he's been biding his time a little bit, but Alfredo will start in P5 when we go back to green flag racing.
Give credit, though, to Nathan Rabideau in P4 as well. We haven't talked too much about him, James, and we've seen him at the front a few times in Euro competition this season. He's just quietly been riding in the top 10 all race, and now is at his highest point of the entire night, P4, on the top line, which if Mullis nails his start in front of him, might be able to get him up potentially to P3 if he can to pinch on down McKinney. So what a drive for Rabideau tonight to gain the spots he has and have the pace he has. His lap times fastest are not in the same ballpark, yes, as the kings of the field, but his average lap times have been in the same ballpark as the race leaders over the past 20 laps.
I think Nathan Rabideau is wishing that this was a points event because it would be his best night of the season by a significant margin in that 93 car. The other thing I've noticed watching this race, and something that I think we'll have to pay attention to with the 29 car, and you mentioned it a little bit just a moment ago, the ability that the leader has and or anybody up front and up high has to pinch someone on corner exit. I feel like we've seen drivers come down nearly a lane, anywhere from a lane to a lane and a half on corner exit to keep drivers at bay. And I have to believe that may end up being the biggest weapon in Anthony Burrow's arsenal for this final restart, or maybe set of restarts, depending on how this goes.
Well, part of that is the momentum you can carry off the corner in terms of acceleration and being able to force the driver below to essentially have to check up. So you're going to see that a lot. In turn, that also burns up a bit more of the tires to the car below, because they'll have to turn a bit more sharper to keep it off the driver who's giving them the pinch. So that's why we see that a lot of times. The question is going to be, though, how this plays out. 5-lap dash. Here we go, James.
5-lap scheduled. Green-white checkers are available if we need them, so it could go longer than 100 laps, but back on the gas pedal is Anthony Burrows. He got about a car length or two on Jimmy Mullish on that restart as we sail off into 1 and 2. Look at McCandless all the way up top, trying to take it pretty wide to gain some spots, but Burrows and Mullish, oh, Burrows got the wall on the exit of 2.
And Burrows lost a little bit of time, bit of trouble towards the back, able to hold on to it though. McCandless though is now spinning in the middle of the pack. Caution is out, and now it's GWC time.
Now we'll get the green-white checker, and the man who was best positioned to take advantage of it is the man who also goes around over in 4 and brings it out. That's Blake McCandless, who had the freshest tires in the field, but got sideways there. A little bit of help, it looks like, from Josh Kosek in the 2 car. They went side by side off into 3. Kosek drove the bottom. McCandless was trying to ride the top, and yeah, just a little bit of contact in the center of the corner sends Blake around.
Well, I think partly it was trying to avoid Kobe Wells, who's been fairly loose throughout this run, but as well, once he had that checkup, just that little bobble up, Kosek not able to respond in time, and drivers like Indicado just able to avoid, just got the lucky dog in the last caution. Well, it's insult to injury for Nick Olsen. 2 straight cautions involved in the past 15 laps.
Not much I think Nick Olsen was able to do in that spot. He was just trying to avoid it all and sneak through it. Looks like the damage was incidental to the 24, maybe just the slightest bit of contact with Justin Pacello before he gets into the wall in the front stretch with Josh Kosek there. But a tough night for Nick Olsen again, who has had the anti-golden horseshoe in the ERL this season so far as it goes. Just doesn't seem like Olsen's been able to catch a break.
Yeah, just hasn't had any luck this season. Missed a few races due to DNQs. And now tonight, showed decent speed early on, but has not had the luck go his way. For Josh Kosek, not how I think he wanted to go through this race. Just joined that organization recently after a reshuffle to Rapid, and now even more contact to that front end, and no front end as he had nowhere to go as Olsen pinball to the inside wall.
Going to be starting a few spots behind his boss man, Landon Huffman, in that number 37 machine. Of course, the head over at Total Advantage Motorsport. And JP, we've seen them go to action in the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro a few times. And I have to believe they're going to be a threat in the Pro Series. Stephen Wilson, probably their best challenger, but might not be the only one.
Yes, indeed. And that's actually a great point to discuss here, because the whole organization has been on full cylinders, especially since Huffman became involved with Dead Zone Racing's Road to Pro program. They're all favorites, I think, potentially to make it to the Coke Series even at this point, James, because all of them have been quick, all of them have been consistent, and a majority of the top 20 are from essentially their group or Nexus Esports. That's going to be something to keep an eye on when they have to battle with some of the Coke drivers who get relegated, to see how they adapt to that talent and if their said talent balances out in the Xfinity cars come a couple of months from now during the wintertime.
And I think that's something that a lot of folks don't understand about the Coke Series and the way it works. Yes, you have the 20 teams involved in name, but a lot of the backbone of the Coke Series comes from the sim racing teams, the Dead Zones, the 5 Stars, the Team Contis, the VRS Coandas, and so on and so forth. Total Advantage is seeking to become the first team to bring everything in-house and be the first of those sim racing organizations that jumps up into the Coke Series and places drivers in the Coke Series. They wouldn't just race for Total Advantage Motorsport, they would be Total Advantage. That's Landon's vision of this show. He's told me. We'll see if he can jump up a little bit further and try and get a few more spots as we go back to green flag racing. Burrows in front here as we take off for this first lap of the green-white checker.
Good launch, though, for Mullis. Here comes the run. A bit of a squeeze. Burrows just forced him out of the gas, trying to keep him down low.
It's going to take a big send, I think. They come off of 4. White flag out in the air, so if we get it, this is it. One more chance for Mullis to get it as Alfredo goes down the front stretch sideways.
Alfredo, a good run, now nod for naught. Mullis trying to get one good run into turn 3. One final chance, hard to the inside. Just side by side with Burrows.
And it might be enough. He gets into Burrows and knocks Burrows sideways. And Jimmy Mullis with the side pedal again gets the victory at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. He's pretty crafty with the doors. You got to give him credit to it. Mullis was able to get the victory at Charlotte in the ERL with a little bit of love from the door. He gets the victory tonight at Nashville with some help from the door too. And he gets around Anthony Burrows at the final corner to get the first big-time victory in the Music City. The ERL All-Star race for the fall to Jimmy Mullis in the 46.
And that is overtones to what we've seen for the championship battle, but what a finish. What a run. And don't forget, the victory lane here at this racetrack is fully accessible. And as Mullis destroys his race car for inspection, he gets the fun of trying to find his way into said victory lane. This is going to be interesting.
There is victory lane. We'll see if Jimmy can make it there, but it's actually right behind the pit stalls, just off to the left-hand side. As you see the mini oval here at Nashville, part of the setup of the configuration here, which you can actually run. This is actually as part of the racetrack that they run Legends cars and some of the smaller things at a little bit flatter. But Jimmy has the left front toe bent all to pieces. But I do believe, Justin Prince, that we're going to give Jimmy a go.
Oh!
Well, he almost made it to victory lane. He almost made it to victory lane. And I guess we'll give Evan Rice credit for being the one that actually makes it there. As Jimmy Mullis gets the victory tonight at Nashville over Blaze McKinney. Nathan Rabideau finishes in the 3rd spot. J-Mo finishes in 4th. Lucas Cram came up in 5th. Evan Rice was 6th. Anthony Burrows eventually ends up 7th. Landon Huffman 8th. Colby Wells 9th. And Anthony Alfredo gets the top 10.
Well, this is a brand new track, so that'll likely be fixed soon. And Ducano, though, finished 11th, DeWeese 12th, Kozik, Olsen, Henrata on the lead lap. Henrata crashed among the last lap drivers with a few drivers such as Alfredo. Zimmer finished behind McCandless 16th and 17th, a couple laps down the DNFs. Novak, Minter, Strauss, and Adams, Rabel, and Majet did not start tonight's fun all-star race.
A few more drivers. You've got Donovan Strauss in the mix at the end, and that trio that made it happen. But let's bring in Jimmy Mullis, and we'll talk to our race winner. And Jimmy, wild last few laps there on the restarts, and this felt like a tale of two races. It almost felt like a doubleheader packed into one. So but we'll go in chronological order. That first half of the race where you ran away from everybody and then backed up to everyone right around lap 50. Did you just push the tires a little bit further than you wanted to, and it sort of came back to bite you in the end right before we got to midway?
Yeah, I definitely used my stuff up that first run. I didn't really know what I was, I guess, getting myself into. I just used them up, you know. I was really comfortable and was just kind of setting my own pace. And yeah, I melted the right rear off of it. But you know, before we have any more questions, I feel so bad for wrecking Anthony, because I mean, I definitely tried to get in there and run up on his door, but to wreck him, it doesn't even feel like a win. But yeah, I mean, I think he deserved this one a whole lot more than I did.
I was going to ask you about it, so I guess that just about explains everything that I was going to ask. That you were trying to get the door, but it was more of a chrome horn door that you're looking for and less of a wrecking door, yeah?
Yeah, like I said, I definitely drove it into 3, and was committed to trying to get to his inside. I honestly thought he would protect a little bit harder than he did, but he left me enough of a gap to get there, and I had been running that seam pretty well, but then in the center of the corner I was tight, and I ain't gonna try to make an excuse for it. We just came together and unfortunately ended up wrecking him off of 4, but it was a great battle up until that point. I think I've made it known that I'm not intentionally a dirty driver or anything. It was just one of them hard racing incidents, and hate that it turned out that way, but nonetheless it was really fun tonight.
And for everybody who hasn't had the chance to drive this track in any car, much less the Cup car, for everybody watching, what is it like to race at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, and why should they buy the track?
Oh, it's a completely different animal than anything I've ever experienced short track wise. On iRacing, there's just, you think you have a lot of grip and then you don't, and the track's got a lot of characteristics. It's really really bumpy on corner exits, and that makes you have to set the corner up in different ways than you normally would. It's fun not having to drive in on the bottom and just run there every lap like a typical short track. You're kind of searching for grip. I know Anthony, for most of the race, he was like a lane and a half higher than I was the whole corner, and I could never get that to work. So definitely worth the purchase. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it'll put on some good shows as time moves on.
And maybe arguably most importantly, can you teach us how to replicate your move in a victory lane? Because you almost made it there. It was close, but that was entertaining to say the least. So how'd you manage to end up on your lid about a foot from victory circle?
Not too sure. I was trying to find where victory lane actually was, because I know Anthony wanted us to go there, and next thing I know, I was flipped over. So that was great.
That might be one of the funniest moments I think I've seen in all my time on the server. So I guess we'll give a shout out to Evan Rice, who actually did find a way to get into victory lane right after you. But so we'll give him a gold star. Maybe take some of that gold off of your wheels from the car last night, because I know you're going to have to trade that back in. He can get one of those and stick it in his virtual living room or something. But for now, for everybody that makes it happen for you, and I know a huge week for all the folks at Richmond Raceway Esports. They're a big part of this, but who else do you need to thank? What other shout-outs do you need to give? And what notes did Brandon Brown send you that we need to pass on to the folks watching here tonight?
Oh, yeah. As always, got to thank the guys at Richmond Raceway and Richmond Raceway Esports, SimSeat, Sunoco, Coca-Cola Energy, all my partners, and, big shout-out to my teammates at Lockdown Racing for all they do. Thanks to you guys for the broadcast, and for anyone out there that's watching, I'm sure you probably will be, but if not and you didn't know about it, they are racing at Richmond this weekend, so be sure to tune in on NBC and all that fun stuff. I think this is the first time the trucks are going back there in a long time, so that should be pretty exciting. And I want to give a shout out to Anthony. Again, he drove a great race, and I really hate that we came together. I know you know how I am, James, and to finish it off like that, really, it kind of stings. But we'll move on, and he drove a great race, and thanks you guys again.
Key at the end of the day, I think, so far as you're concerned, is that this is just an exhibition race for fun at the end of it all, and you put on an incredible show. But Jimmy, congratulations. The defending ERL champ gets it done, and we look forward to seeing you next week. At Richmond. Surprise, surprise.
Thanks, buddy.
Jimmy Mullis, P1 tonight at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. We turn our attention now to the man who ended up second. Blaze McKinney comes home P2 after the madness on the last lap, and he is with Justin Prince.
Blaze, that was a really wild and really fun race, it seemed, from the broadcaster booth's perspective. What was it like from your perspective, being up in the top 3 just about the entire night?
Oh, it was wild. I love this track. Just getting laps on it, it's wild. Tires just go away, and it's fun wheeling it around there. The long run was so much fun, just saving the tires and getting by them guys. I was getting to Anthony there before that caution came out. It's just a ton of fun. It's that last couple restarts, they were wild, just one after the other, and Came home P2 there, hoping we could get the win, but this is definitely as good as we could get.
There were so many different lines it seemed working tonight. Burrows was able to make the middle line, for example, work more so in 3 and 4. Moas preferred all the way down to the bottom much of the race, but was able to move around. Many others were trying all the way up to the wall in some cases. What was it like having that chance in this type of track where you have that ability to move around with several different lanes being quick?
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of fun, especially because different passing opportunities. If someone in front of you is on the bottom, you can try to top and try to get around them. If someone's on the top, you can try to go to the bottom. And I especially really loved the bottom tonight. It was probably the best lane for me. I could save my tires on there and run pretty quick. So it was fun exploring the different lines and trying to find speed throughout the race.
Now, of course, the next race goes to Richmond for this series, and it's a points-paying race. How do you feel going to that short track knowing, oh, hey, the person who just won the race just so happens to be representing said track, and the pressure might be on for you as well to perform once more?
Yeah, it's nice to have some momentum to go into another short track next week because finished second here on another short track. So it's nice. Hopefully we can follow next week up with hopefully one spot better. But again, top 2 would definitely be good either way next week. So it's just really nice to have some momentum and really happy to have a good run tonight.
Anyone you want to thank for your momentum-filled run tonight?
Yeah, especially Sim Performance Group Esports for having me on first couple weeks on the team. I appreciate DJ and all the guys over there. Crystal Designs for sponsoring the car tonight. ZD Autosport, Tabor Accounting Group, and I believe that's it.
Congratulations on the strong run tonight, and we'll see how you do next week.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Blaze McKinney comes home in second, James.
McKinney was P2. Nathan Rabideau, P3 tonight. Nathan, we said on the broadcast, this was your best run of the year in ERL competition. A shame in that sense that it comes in an exhibition race, but for this track being so new, it seems like you really figured out this place and found a way to make it click in short order in a way that few other people could. Did you have a sense that it was coming to you that quickly and that you were having a little bit more success than the rest of the field in practice, or have any indication during the race that you were piecing it together?
Well, in practice, it took a little bit to get used to the track, and then just during the race on that long run, that first long run, man, that middle line there, I just was on it the entire time, and it just felt so good in the long run. And the tires were just amazing during that long run. I only had not a lot of wear on that right rear, so I wanted to keep it long run and see how far I could go with it. But things happen, and we get a good finish there, and a good finish for me. I can't believe it. I never would have thought I'd be up front like that, and I just love it to put the 93, the Midnight Chevy up in the spotlight here, man.
The Midnight Chevy, I've wanted to ask about the scheme for a bit, so no time like the present. Tell us a little bit more about all those neon colors and how that scheme came to be.
So first, I'd like to thank Cosmin from Splash and Go Graphics for making this scheme. This scheme is just what I dream about. The Midnight are a synthwave group of 2 guys, and they just make amazing music, and I just love them so much.
And you get a car that looks like it could have been plucked straight from Midnight. And I suppose maybe you get a little bit of Midnight magic as we go into the nighttime at Richmond next Wednesday night. We're headed to another short track with a lot of history, but how excited are you to get to the action track and have a lot of fun up at the capital of the Commonwealth?
Feels pretty good. We get some practice into Richmond. We'll have practice this week for NIS as well. So we got 2 weeks of getting ready for Richmond technically. So yeah, I'll be prepared for it, and I'll see what I can do. Finish pretty well on that too.
I know there are plenty of people you need to thank tonight, Nathan. So send your shout outs and your love to all the folks who helped make it possible for you.
I gotta thank the guys at Nexus Esports, being part of the team, and just awesome group of guys. I'd like to thank Cosmo once again for Splash and Go Graphics for the paint scheme. Follow my Twitch and Twitter, Harley Jackie Rusty, and that's all I got. Thank you for the broadcast, guys. Y'all did an excellent job.
Nathan, congratulations on your P3 tonight. We look forward to seeing you in Richmond 1 week from tonight.
All right, thank you, guys.
Nathan Rabideau, final man on the podium this evening, and that rounds out our interviews. And it's almost time to close the broadcast down. But before we do, Justin Prince, final thoughts from the first big broadcasted race at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway.
Absolutely entertaining, and I think it lived up to all the expectations for this track. There's a reason so many fans, once they found this track out was going to be on iRacing, jump for joy. I think this is based on what we've seen tonight and based on what some of the drivers have done in official racing and what some of them have discussed. This track may be one of the main staples of short track racing and iRacing service in the near future. It's going to be entertaining to see what happens more so at this track as time goes on. I think tonight was a phenomenal race and showed that there was a lot of love put into this track with the different lines, the detail, the ambient sounds even now. That was part of the updates in the backdrop. This is really well done on iRacing for the track. They do have one thing, of course, to tweak with Victory Lane, but outside of that, you're perfect.
I was about to say, I think we might have outed them on the Victory Lane bit, whether or not we intended to or not. But no, I think we can echo that across the board to everybody. The multiple grooves you found in the corners, it's not just a bottom feeder short track. You can slide around in these lanes and find something that works for you if you aren't on the bottom, which is a very interesting quirk that you don't see at a lot of short tracks like this. So we'll see how quickly Nashville does or doesn't take on. What we can tell you is that over the next 2 months, if you count September and October, there are 2 opportunities that you're going to have on Podium Esports to race at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. One of those will be with the Cars Esport Tour on October 28th, that Wednesday before the Real Life All-American 400. You'll see the Cars Esports Tour finish off their season here at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway at 9 p.m. on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. And then another opportunity that we'll have a little bit more to tell you about in the near future. Wink, wink, wink. That will close out our broadcast almost. Before we tell you, we got a few more things that you want to keep your eyes peeled on over the course of the next week in the world of Podium Esports. Friday night is our next broadcast. Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park comes your way 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel. Then Sunday and Monday night, tune it to the Podium Esports Twitch channel for the GameWorks Racing League from Phoenix Raceway. And then Sim 500 Trans Service Cup Series Sim Racing Shirts 200 from Richmond Raceway. GameWorks will start at 8. That's the season finale for that series, by the way. So we'll crown a champion in Phoenix. And then Richmond for Sim 500, 9 p.m. next Monday night on the Podium Esports Twitch channel before we go to Richmond in the Esports Racing League next Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, here on twitch.tv/ERL Racing. Should be a lot of fun across the board. It is now properly time to close down our broadcast for the Music City for the very first time. So, for Cisco Scaramouza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, Podium Esports, for Anthony Alfredo, Chris Mulhall, and Zach Johnson of the Esports Racing League, from my colleague in the booth, Justin Prince, and our producer tonight, Ryan Bauer, I am James Plank, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of the ERL All-Star Race. We're going to take you over to Landon Huffman's stream and get set to see what Mr. Huffman Live is up to. I imagine it's probably going to be more Nashville racing, potentially in the 87 car. And, oh, by the way, if you want to find out a little bit more information on the California Clash, find California Clash on Facebook and Twitter to go 87 car racing at Auto Club Speedway next week. We send you over to Landon now, and from all of us at Podium Esports and the ERL, good night.